this is a guy that I think before the Senior Bowl, there was an awful lot of hype. He had an impressive Senior Bowl. It feels like the hype is getting excited. I am so interested to hear your thoughts because I have a feeling we're probably going to disagree. So, yeah, I guess it's a case of take it away.
So, I really like Ladd McConkey. So I liked him before the Senior Bowl. Then I was covering the Senior Bowl and I was sat there after day one. I was like, right, I'm going to chop up the clips, like the best highlights, get them out on Twitter. And then it was like, Ladd McConkey's first rep, tick. Ladd McConkey's second rep, tick. And then I was going through and I'm like, I'm literally just going to be sharing every single one-on-one rep that this guy had. Like don't get me wrong, the Senior Bowl is weighted towards the wide receivers in the one-on-one drills. But this isn't just the Senior Bowl.
As a former corner, I can say it's not just weighted; it is horrendously weighted towards the wide receivers.
It's especially when like they're running it from like really inside splits, and then you're like, okay, yeah, you're covering the entire field. Yeah,
it's just let's set up corners to fail and then laugh at them when they can't cover these guys one-on-one.
Yeah. So I think you've always got to take those with a pinch of salt. But I think there is enough on his game tape, that mirrors that and shows that it works in a game setting. He is one of the most natural separators in this class. He just finds space. He knows how to manipulate defensive backs in space. His ability to take leverage, manipulate it, create the space that he wants. It's like you're watching a guy who has been doing this in the NFL for years. The thing is that I think some people, I say some people, the people who haven't properly watched him come up with the lazy comps because he's a small white slot receiver. So we all can pencil in like the Wes Welker comp or some, like I've even seen people say Cooper Kupp, and I'm like, no. Like his game reminds me a lot of Jahan Dotson, who I was a big fan of coming out of Penn State, in that they're both small, like as you've got on the screen, like he is not a big guy. He doesn't have ideal physicality. Yes, there are going to be worries about how he fares against press, but he's just a smooth, talented wide receiver with good hands, and I think he's creative in the open field. Like there's a lot there that I can see translating well to the NFL.
Yeah, I think I plug on the tape and there's a lot that I like. Like I'm a big route runner guy. That's kind of I love good route runners, and he is that, and he's fantastic at separating. I love him with the ball in his hands, and I think that he's potentially going to be a player that we could see used on, as a punt returner on special teams and but also in a kind of inventive ways on offense, whether it be jet sweeps, whether it be in the screen game, just to get the ball in his hands because he can make guys miss in space. But I just can't help but feel I just want a bit more from him. And part of it is that he's playing on an offense that has got some fantastic players around. There's the tight end that is quite frankly an absolute beast. But I can't really describe it, but I just want more. And then you go to the numbers and it just leaves you wanting more. I look at receiving yards per team pass attempt, he's 34th percentile. Yards per team pass attempt breakout age, he's 47th percentile. PPR points per game percentile, 31st. Like he comes out as like a 60th percentile guy in my model. And it's just like, I don't know if he's got the ceiling that I am looking for a guy to spend a potentially second round pick on. I think if you told me he's a solid 75 to 80 catch guy in the NFL as a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 for a team, and he's kind of going to sit around my flex spot, I'm going to, do I start him, do I not each week? I'd believe it. I don't know if I see a world where Ladd McConkey is a 100+ target guy in the NFL. And I think that for me, in that second round, I'd rather take a chance on someone that I think has potentially got the higher upside, that has potentially got that home run potential as a prospect, than a guy that I feel like is a safe, solid option in Ladd McConkey.
Yeah, I know what you mean because I think he played most of his snaps, I want to say from memory about 70% on the outside at Georgia.
Yep.
He's going to be a slot in the NFL, right? So then you're more landing spot dependent than maybe a more prototypical X type receiver. You know, you're dependent on a team that plays plenty of 11 personnel, but then you're also dependent on being on a team that uses the slot, you know, for a smaller guy. Yeah, seeing how much volume he gets. I think the other question is injuries. Like so he had, I think, a back and an ankle injury that caused him to miss time in 2022. As we've said, he's not very big, but he's not necessarily the most physical. Um, so
And
yeah,
and that
is he a guy who gets a limited amount of touches because teams don't want to try and do you want to be funneling 100 touches a year to a guy who comes with some durability questions?
But I think also you touched on the physicality. We're saying that he's probably going to be a slot in the NFL. I think an underrated thing of slot receivers now is that they've got to be willing to go in and block. Like we've seen NFL defenses have adjusted, and nickel corners are now becoming a prized piece on the defense. And we're seeing a lot of safeties come down and play the nickel. We're seeing a lot of teams move their best corner, their most physical corner, into the nickel. So it's not a case of, being oh, I'm just going to go up and block the small corner, which is what used to happen. You'd pick your smallest corner and push them into the nickel. Now these guys are real playmakers on defense. And if you're not physical, if you're not willing to go in and block them, that's going to limit the amount of time you're on the offense, and that is a concern. I do worry that are we going to say he's a slot but only on passing downs? Are we going to move him across to the Z and try and play him off the line of scrimmage to get him free releases, but try and play him outside? Like I don't know. I think he's going to be the kind of guy that if he's in a team where there's not many other weapons and you've got that a kind of a scheme that can be built around him, maybe there's that ceiling. But I just don't know if there's probably more than 3 or 4 teams where that would be the case. I think on most NFL teams, on most, likely landing spots, he's probably going to sit in as that wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. And I just worry that that could potentially cap that ceiling. I think for me, he's like a solid, safe C plus, but I'm sort of hoping, I'm always swinging for upside in fantasy, and I'd rather go for a guy that could be an F or could be an A, and I'd rather take that risk.
Yeah, and I get that. I think he's a high floor guy. Like if you can separate, you don't really fail in the end. Like when's the last time we saw a guy who was a smart technician at college that failed in the NFL? Like it doesn't really happen, right? So I think he's going to
Route
be
running
fine on that.
translates.
Yeah, yeah. Like I think that translates really well. Like you say, I think the question with McConkey is the ceiling rather than the floor.